Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. Let's assess if the engine on the CX project is any good. It sounds all right. It actually sounds really nice. It is getting slightly hot really quickly. I think it's down to air in the coolant system, so I'm going to take a look at that later. But what I want to do in this video is to check the compression. Because of the coolant issues, I'm not gonna get it hot. I'm just gonna do the compression test on cold engine. So I expect to see a little bit lower readings, but what I'm looking for is consistency and acceptable figures. What I'm gonna do right now is to remove all the spark plugs. Then I'm gonna locate the fuel pump relay or fuse or something like that so we can switch that off. And then I'm gonna disconnect the coil also so we don't get any spark and don't get any fuel squirted into the engine. There's no reason to have that. And then we can do the compression test. This is really nice. They are all very easy to get loose. Obviously they have been lubricated, so as I have a feeling, this car seems to be really well serviced, and it's another clue. First spark plug is looking nice. It is smelling rancid of old fuel. I'm surprised it's running as well as it is, considering that this fuel smells like years old fuel. So draining the tank and filling in fresh fuel would be a very good idea. So all the spark plugs looks pretty nice. It is different spark plugs though, which is kind of weird. We got 2 Champion and 2 NGK. Right over here, we have a big blue relay. That should be the fuel injection relay. So I'm just gonna unplug that, and then I don't think we have any fuel squirting into there. And if we do, it won't be the end of the world, but I'm pretty sure that's the relay. So next up, I will disconnect the ignition coil also. And this being a petrol engine, I'm going to floor the throttle and then let it spin for a couple of times. You want the throttle to be floored because you want as much air to get in there as possible. If you don't apply any throttle, it will read a lower figure. Let's see what kind of reading we can get from this. Okay, the battery sounds a little bit low. I need to listen for it to get slower, because if it gets slower, then the compression will also read slower or lower. What do we have here? 130. Now I think it's supposed to have more than that, but the engine is cold. And the battery is maybe a tad weak. So I'm not gonna sound the alarm just yet, because if this is 130 or thereabout as well, then that's probably fine. And remember, I don't know if this is the original engine, but the car itself got 400,000 kilometers on the clock. So I'm not expecting this engine to be like a brand new engine. Okay, so number 2 got 110 PSI. Number 3. But if you listen carefully, you'll notice that the starter motor is struggling to spin the engine over, even though it's only one piston that has actually got compression. So the battery is weak. I'd say that's just about 130 again, maybe 125 is more precise. 125. 120 PSI. This is the compression figures. This one is slightly low. I'm not that worried about it, but it is more than 10% in difference to the others. But I'm just gonna do number 2 one more time just to see if maybe we can get it a little higher. All right, so I actually just redid the test on cylinder number 2, and it's now reading 100 and I'm saying 18, which is perfect. Because if this is 18, then we are within 10%. Woohoo! Well, it doesn't really matter much. Remember, it could also be valve adjustment that needs to be done. It could also just need a bit of a run-in because it hasn't run for a long time. All I know is the compression figures that I'm seeing, I'm happy with, especially on a 400,000 kilometer engine. So, so far so good. You might notice that everything looks different in the background because this is not just after I did the compression test, it's actually a couple of days later. But I want to continue on the engine assessment. And right now I want to start it up, let it heat up a bit. I do have some overheating issues, so I don't want it to get too warm, but I just want to warm the oil up a little bit to drain it out easier, because I want to change the oil and the oil filter and then start working on the coolant system. But it is running pretty decent once it fires up. The starter has a tendency to get stuck. Not this time though. But yeah, I'm just gonna let it heat up for a bit. So there we go. It's up to 10. There we go. I'm not trying to criticize Citroën, not right now at least, but it does feel like the placement of the oil filter is a bit of an afterthought. Or maybe they just were trying already back then to make it impossible for the owners to change their own oil. It is at least very, very hard to reach. I can also already now say that it's going to be messy to get it out. And this has not been changed for a long time, maybe because of this. Maybe someone just thought, I'm just going to change the oil and leave the filter in there. It's a little bit more than just hand tight right now. There we go, it's loose. Yeah, and of course the extension cannot fit through that hole. That needs to be looped over the exhaust, and then the light falls out. And then over there, and then ta-da! Very easy. There's a lot of design elements that I really like on the CX. The oil filter placement is not one of them. They're still added today, by the way. Let's try to put the cam belt down into an oil bath and see what happens. Seriously. Oh, yes, it's out. Let me just show you the amount of struggle to get in there. So, this is the subframe underneath. Let's try to show you the location of the axial filter. Can you see it up there? It's right up there, right in there. This is maybe the point that is closest to it. and it would be pretty easy to reach it from here. But do you think it's possible to put the oil filter through that hole? Nope. What about here? Nope. What about over here? Oh yes, it's possible to get it in there. Then you have to loop it over the exhaust and get your hand in from here to catch it, and then put it up there and spin it on. I really don't understand why they made this complicated, other than the fact that they didn't really think the design through. Anyway, I'm gonna fit the filter and be done with that. So let's get some fresh oil into this. And there we go, perfect. With fresh oil in the engine, now comes the time to work on the coolant system, because I got a spare radiator for this one. I actually pressure tested this system and it's holding up pressure, so it's not leaking. But I'm going to try to show you this. I'm not sure that you can see it down there, but it is really showing signs of leak. And I think that someone might have put some leak stop in this system, because if we take a look at the expansion tank, one thing is you might be able to hear pressure escaping, but also down here is something that looks very scary. You could be tempted to say it's a head gasket issue, and I wouldn't say no to that, because this engine got a lot of miles on it. Most likely it has been blown before, but I don't think anything is wrong right now, even though it is overheating slightly. I don't think it's because of the head gasket. I think it's because of air pockets, I hope. But that down there could also be that stuff to fill it. So I would really like to do a quick flush of the system, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. No! Ah, it snapped. I have a feeling that there is absolutely no flow in that radiator, because there's really not a lot coming out. And that makes sense in my belief that something is clogged and the circulation is not really working as it is supposed to. Of course, it could be other things than the radiator, but I was told that the radiator was bad, so someone must have tested that. Someone already started this process, because there are some bolts that attaches the condenser to the radiator and the fans to the assembly. Those has been removed, snapped. But someone has tried to remove this, but have not succeeded to get it up and out, I think. It's a tight fit, but easier than on an XM. Let's just, for the fun of it, see what kind of stuff comes out of the radiator. Ah. Rusty water. It's not what you want to see when you drain your radiator, but it's not a surprise. It doesn't look like oil though, so I'm not that worried about that. It really do look like, at least I have seen before, some leak stop that looks like mud pretty much. Maybe it is just mud, I don't know. But a lot of particles that can clog up stuff, leaks for instance, but also the rest of the system. Okay, so I accidentally did not hit record, but right now I'm flushing the system. I got a bottle up there to catch the stuff that goes return from the heater matrix. And then I got a bottle down here to catch the stuff running through the engine block. And then I'm flushing through the other end of the heater matrix. And currently muddy water is coming out. And it's not the cool kind of muddy water. So I'm just going to continue on doing that until it gets clean. I'm just going to continue doing it. Okay, so I made this little contraption down by the radiator hose, so it runs into that, and then down into the bucket. And now look at the current state of the water coming out. Notice that the bucket is a bit dirty down there, but the water coming out looks pretty clean to me. And I'm happy with this result, so I'm going to stop here and start reassembling the system again. And I just finished up cleaning this one up. Not perfect either, but it's a lot cleaner down there. And I had to go inside to use the sink. And my wife asked me if I was building a submarine. She thought that this was looking like something that you would fit to a submarine. And I kind of agree. The Citroën design is always very strange. But I gotta hand it to them. This circular construction gotta be pretty strong. Yeah, and it's way cleaner down there. It's not perfect, but it's not full of crap down there anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and fit all the stuff back into the engine bay and the new radiator, and then we're gonna fill it up, and hopefully we can run the engine without having it overheat in a couple of minutes. And with everything back in, let's fill in some coolant. So now it's no longer sinking, and what I want to do now is to pressurize the system, because then I can do a controlled bleeding without having the engine running or anything like that. So with this, I'm going to pressurize it. This way I can also check for leaks. And we got coolant there. Then I'm going to open up this one on the water pump. I might do this the wrong order, but I don't think it will matter that much. I'm going to open up this. Now I can hear air. I want to start seeing some coolant and the air. I want to, yeah, there we go. We got coolant. The last one is very hard to find, right in there, just besides one of the intakes. Oh, there's a lot of air in the system. It's not weird that we had a problem with overheat before, because I just filled in some water because it was pretty much empty when I got it, and I didn't bleed anything. I didn't run it for long either. I just wanted to move it. And there we go. Water is coming out. So now I just want to start it up and make sure that it doesn't overheat. I'm just going to check the level once more because some of the air has been bled, so the level has dropped. Then I'm going to start it up and keep an eye on the temperature. There's a temperature gauge inside the car. That's the reason why I knew that it was getting hot before, because it reached 100 degrees pretty quickly, and then I turned it off. So I need to make sure that it doesn't climb too high and that the radiator fan kicks in. I tested them while I was in there, by the way. Yeah, and when that is done, the engine will be hot, and then I can take an oil pressure reading, and then hopefully everything is still good. And also I let this sit at 5 psi for a while, and it's just perfect still. Nice quiet engine, by the way. It's really smooth. Yeah, and we got heat in the cabin also. That's working. Got a pretty interesting sucking noise over here. Is it just the intake? It sounds like a massive air leak. or vacuum leak. Round about this valve kind of thing that you can screw. I have no idea what that does. Seems like some kind of bleeding mechanism, but on the air system. Could also just be the intake sound we can hear. Sounds a bit weird. I think I'm going to smoke test this later, but not today. Let's check the temp. 75 degrees. It's decent. I could wait until the fan kicks in, but actually this is working because it was not possible to run it for very long before, and right now I'm struggling to just keep the temperature up. So I'd say this is good enough. I'm gonna switch it off and then connect my oil pressure gauge and check the oil pressure. And also before, when I switched it off, it would start forcing air out of the expansion tank because of high pressure, because of overheating, or air pocket in this case, I think. Nothing seems to be sizzling or anything right now, so I think it's perfect. So next up, it's the oil pressure. And there is a sensor down here for the oil pressure light, which is coming off when the engine runs. So I'm actually not worried about the oil pressure too much, but it's always nice to know what it actually is. It's a seriously big fitting. I don't know if I have anything that big with the right thread. Okay, I have nothing that fits on that to make my oil pressure kit fit this one. So I'm not going to test the oil pressure today, and I think I won't do it actually because I have no reason to believe it's not good. It is shutting off the oil light instantly when it starts. It could be a bit low, the engine is most likely warm, but if the oil pressure is a problem, then I'm pretty sure I will find out in the future, and then I will just have to deal with it because I have set all sails to get this car back on the road. So let's just hope that is all right. And if not, then we're going to fix it. I actually think this is an oil temperature sensor and not the oil light. So the oil light sensor must be somewhere else. There's one last thing that I want to show you and talk to you about. It's the fix in the sunroof. It has turned out to be quite terrible, to be honest. Not the metalwork, I'm happy with the metalwork, but no surprise to myself at least. The filler, the sanding and the painting has been horrible. And the worst thing, we got some high spots there and there and there, and on the other side as well. That is because of some rubber sealer balls that was underneath here I think they were put there to avoid vibrations. I should have removed them because the problem is that when I welded it, it shrunk, but it couldn't shrink down in the areas where those balls were, and therefore they have deformed it slightly. I could have just fixed that by adding a lot of filler, and I think I'm going to do that, but I ended up thinking, it won't be that visible. Then I sanded it a bit, and then I should have sanded a bit more, but I thought, it won't be that visible. And I don't know why I keep on thinking that paint will cover stuff up, because it never covers anything up other than color. So all the sanding marks, all the areas where I wasn't really careful has been, it's very visible now, and the result is not very nice. Also, I made a mistake on the on right there, because you never want a tape line to be the line when you paint, but I did something wrong there. Also, the paint color is not matching very nicely either. So there's a lot of things wrong with this job, and I am actually tempted to put some vinyl roof on it. But I really am tempted to just redo this area at some point. Sand it down again, filler, sand, become good at that, and then try to paint it again. Maybe try to get another paint color, because this is, I ordered the color code, but yeah, of course it has been faded. So yeah, I just wanted to show you the final result, and I'm not satisfied with this, but I'm satisfied with the metalwork. I'm actually proud of that, to be honest. So that's good enough. Anyway, I now feel confident to continue on this project. The coolant system is working now. The compression is okay. I don't know about the oil pressure, but I think it's just fine. The next step is to clean the interior and get that back in the car, because I only need one more hole in the interior floor. Then it should be ready to get everything back in. That will make the car mobile also, so I can move it in and out, because it's a little bit difficult to drive a car without a seat. It's possible though, but still. And then after that, I'm going to make a list of stuff I need to fix before going to the MOT, fixing the brakes or overhauling the brakes. There's a rear wheel bearing that needs to be changed, and most likely a lot of other stuff, new tires. Yeah, but anyway, progress is made. The engine seems to be healthy enough, at least for what I'm going to use this car for. And yeah, that's nice. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.